Hey Roosters, and welcome back to another video. In the last video I said that this video was going to be about either playtest or art. Well, it's neither of those things. It's a new rules update again, I know. But these aren't changing the rules completely. Small updates to the rules we already know. A lot of in the biggest rules are exactly the same as the last video. So if you're confused what I'm talking about, go watch the last video. It will explain to you exactly what you need to know what's different this time, which is why I made that video in the first place. And the differences in the rule changes are small, so if you end up not watching this video, I guess you would be watching it now, so you already watched it. But the point is that if you don't watch this video, it's probably something you may be able to pick up on when I do playtests in the next or later videos, right? So, small rule changes, or rather, a small amount of rule changes, some of them are actually pretty big. Because the win condition has just changed, or rather, it's been added to. How to win was before deplete your opponent's stamina, which is still the case. But to add a second layer to that, you can also deal 5 damage to your opponent. Now, the reason why I added the second win condition is to give a more looming threat of losing and a more tangible effect of winning. Because beforehand, it was really hard to tell who was out on top as your deck is reshuffled, recovered, and all that stuff. The game state kind of shifts a little bit. Now dealing 10 damage, although that also shifts, it gives you a goalpost to know that I'm leading towards something. Every time I do damage, I'm working towards the win and the end goal, and it allows you to tangibly see that. And it gives a bit of terror to your opponent because it adds a little more pressure to them as they take more and more damage. That being said, let's go over some of the other small rule changes. I'll explain how damage works now in conjunction with depleting your opponent's stamina in a bit. What you need to know is that if your opponent runs out of stamina, you win the game. If they run out of stamina, as in they can't recover, you win the game. If they take 10 damage, you win the game. Anyway, moving on. So, card types stay the same. They're the same for card types. The difference is that action cards have gotten a major buff and overhaul. Before, they had one purpose, attacking and defending. Now, what I'm now calling arsenal cards have 4 different things you can use them for, though not every arsenal card can be used for each of these things. Every arsenal card can be used to attack and defend, but well, not everyone, but despite that being a basic ability, they now have all their abilities, other ways you can play and use them. So, that being said, let's go over that in a bit. Before we do that, let's talk about the deck building changes and the changes to the essentially deck building. So, before deck building worked like this, you would pick your gladiator, your source, 4 sprites, and a deck of 30 arsenal cards, or action cards is what they were then. And your sprite cards only would determine what skills you had, and that's the type of cards you could add to your deck. It was a pretty simple way of getting it done, and it was pretty effective essentially. But I wanted something a little different. First off, I wanted your choice of gladiator and source to also have an effect on the gameplay. So what I did was I gave each of the cards you start with the game with a different skill it gives you, a different type of skill even. Sprites provide principles, sources provide colors, and gladiators provide classes. And you can play any card you want, regardless of principle, class, or color. That sounds actually a bit crazy when I say it out loud. But you can only recover cards of skills you have. So, for example, if I had my 4 sprites had the principles command, focus, strike, and train. I had my source be red and my gladiator be a fistmaster. What that means is that I can recover those types of cards. I can include any card in my deck, but when it comes to recovering, I just have to leave them in the exhaust pile and they don't recover. So you do run the risk of having a situation where you cannot make a full recovery because you had cards that you can't recover. But generally, it doesn't happen that way. The only big difference between that is it limits your options of recovery. A lot of times you'll end up in a place where you have to recover this certain card, where if you had more green cards, you could have recovered either of them. And also, it means that your red cards and your whatever cards you don't have of your color or your skills will be eventually sifted out of your deck as your deck reshuffles a bunch of times. They won't be in that pile. Okay, next let's talk about the new board state. The board state has changed only a little bit. So before, there was 3 shield spaces. Now each shield space has an active space on top of it, a corresponding active space. And what that will do is allow certain arsenal cards to interact with the active space in certain different ways. So that's where a lot of the differences in the arsenal cards' abilities and applications come from. Also, I added a third discard pile. There's no card pile named the discard pile anymore. You have your recovery zone where cards go face down. Arsenal points when spent go there. Source cards when expended go there. Cards played from your hand go there. Face down into your recovery pile. It's like your pitch zone and Flesh and Blood. Then you have your exhaust zone. Cards will send cards there. If you boost with a card, it goes there. Any card that gets exhausted goes to the exhaust zone. And then, of course, you have your damage zone where the cards go there. They go there, and you track their life points as your damage. And we'll go into that a little bit later. But those the new card zones. Not a big difference in total. Not a huge difference in layout, but a small difference that makes a big change in terms of gameplay. Talking about Arsenal cards, back to Arsenal cards, what can they be used for, right? I said they have new uses. Well, the first one is traps. So if an Arsenal card is put that face down as a shield, and someone attacks it and obviously gets flipped face up, you can activate its trap ability. Also, you can put any card from your hand face down into your active zone above a shield, and if that corresponding shield is attacked, then you can flip it up if it's a trap card and activate its ability. It's important to know trap cards don't inherently have a cost. Some of them do, but the cost of the Arsenal card is not the cost of the trap card. Traps are free otherwise. What this means is that a cost for almost all your Arsenal cards are only paid when attacking and defending. And if an effect is different, like it's not an attack or defend effect, then it will tell you what you have to pay to activate it or use it in the text box. Otherwise, it's free. So for this example, the Rupture card will, if it's flipped up as a trap card, cost you nothing, but if you want to attack with it, you have to pay 2 Arsenal points, or action points, or resources, or materials, whatever I end up calling them, right? The next one is active cards. Active cards can be played from your hand, again for free unless they have a cost, into your active zone, and they stick around until that active zone shield is destroyed, or they go away through an opponent's card effect or their own effect or something like that. But essentially, they stay on the board until something gets rid of them, and they'll give you an ongoing effect. You obviously have 3 active zones, but chances are you won't have them ever all filled up with active cards because how much your shields are going to be destroyed frequently. So try to use them, place them wisely, essentially. Then you have buff effects, or rather, maybe, I don't know what I'm going to call them. These actually do, you play them from your hand, and they go to your discard pile, and the cost of the Arsenal card actually does affect the cost of the buff. But now that I think about it and say it out loud, for the first time since I've designed these cards, and I'm kidding you not, I'm realizing that doesn't have to be the case. Realistically, I could just have it the way, we'll do it that way. Buffs free as well, unless, of course, stated within the text box that it costs a certain amount of materials or action points to spend to play it. Other than that, the cost of the buff itself is specifically for attacking and defending with that Arsenal card. Keeps it clean, keeps it simple. Great. And then, of course, Arsenal cards can also be used to attack and defend. Their original purpose that's still around. And the effects that say defending or attacking or combat, it's just telling you when those effects would trigger. This isn't a different mode of card like the other 3 are. So if I play this card for 3, attack for its power, then I can still activate this defending effect. It's not a different use for the card. And that's the only difference to Arsenal cards. They're relatively the same. Some of them have new uses, but generally they work in the function the same. Attack with them, defend with them. In terms of the flow state of the turn, it stays the same pretty much. The only difference is now that the end phase, which I didn't talk about before, which I said didn't have a purpose, now does. During the end phase, which I didn't even create a slide for, you put all the cards in your recovery pile that are face down under your deck, just like your pitch zone in Flesh and Blood. That's essentially all that happens in the end phase. Again, as of now, unless card effects say otherwise, or I add something else to the end phase. Right now, that's all you do. I believe there was one other thing I wanted to say about it. Obviously, combat actions have changed, right? Perfect. I almost forgot to talk about this. As Arsenal cards have changed, the amount of what the different combat actions you can take have changed. Let me talk about them right now. You can play an Arsenal card as an attack or defense, obviously. You can play an Arsenal card to activate a buff ability. There you go. Play an Arsenal card with an effect ability into your active, or an active ability into your active zone. You play an Arsenal card face down into an active zone, and it doesn't have to be a card with the trap ability on it. It could be any Arsenal card, and you don't have to pay for this. You just put it face down. You can bluff, essentially, but any card face down that does no ability or that you don't want to play or you don't want it in your hand, and there you go. Then you can activate a combat ability on a combat ability or combat action on an Arsenal card that you have in play. So essentially, if I attack with an Arsenal card, it stays in play until I trigger the battle. And what I can do if it has an activated combat action, it's really confusing. I'm gonna have to change the terminology, but essentially, some effects can only be activated on attacks, not when they're played, but as another action after they're played, and you can do that then. And then, of course, you can initiate a battle on shield, which I'll talk about in a bit, which I have talked about already in the past video. There is one other thing about the refresh phase. Draw cards used to be ambiguous. As of now, you draw up to 3 cards in your hand. The reason why it's up to 3 cards is that you don't really need more than that a lot of times. Any more than 3 cards end up not being played anyway, as well as the deck size is really small, don't want you drawing too many cards, and finally, because you have other ways to draw cards in this game, and it's not actually hard to access, so if you really, really need more cards, you can get them. But anyway, that's just a small rule change. I know before I left it up in the air. How many cards do you draw? Do you draw up to or draw a flat amount? Right now, you draw up to 3 cards. What else is there to go over about this before I move on and say that we're done with this part of the video? Yeah, that's about it. So, that's all the changes to the combat and the main turn flow of the game. It just really aren't really any changes, just letting you know what costs an action and what is free to do. That being said, combat hasn't changed either. Combat's the exact same. You play an attack, you can boost it. Your opponent plays a defense, they can boost it, so on and so forth. You calculate combat the exact same, defense plus shield value versus attack. If you meet, you beat. If you exceed, you win, obviously. And if the shield card is defeated, that's where the first change comes into. Before, if a shield card is not defeated, so if you have 5 defense here and your opponent only attack with 3, then the card would go into your deck right away. Well, with the introduction of the recovery zone, that means that the card goes into your recovery pile right away. Card isn't defeated, it goes to it recovers right away. Now, let's say your opponent is able to beat your shield value because you didn't defend or something, or a different reason. Then that card, the shield card, doesn't go to your exhaust pile, it goes to your damage pile. And you count up the amount of recovery points on every card in your damage pile, and that's how much damage you have taken. So in this case, you've taken 1 damage because this card has recovery cost of 1. You get 9 more of those cards, you're out of here. You lose the game, right? And if your opponent is, for whatever reason, able to attack you while you have no shield cards in play, if you're shieldless and your opponent's able to attack you, then you discard cards from you take damage. You take cards from the top of your deck and put them into your damage zone equal to your opponent's attack power, which means you can take a ludicrous amount of damage if your opponent is able to attack you and you have no shield. How do you stop this? You can't really stop this other than applying pressure to your opponent that they can't handle. I might change that on a little bit, but between trap cards, active cards that may give you defensive abilities, and defense cards, you can really slow down your opponent's ability to attack you. Though if they do have the ability as of now, there's really nothing much you can do to stop them. I get that it's a bit of a weak part in the design, but as of now, it has never been a problem. I've never had a situation in playtesting where I've been able to actually attack 4 times in 1 round. Being the fact that, again, you only draw up to 3 cards on your turn, you need at least 4 cards in your hand, although it's not impossible. Source cards have not yet changed. They still function the same way. You put the cards under them, offset, yada yada. But let's talk about recovery because I've mentioned it a lot, and how you recover hasn't changed. Just the overall rules around recovery has changed. Let's talk about it right now. So first of all, if you recover, you take all your cards from your damage pile and you put them in your exhaust zone. So you clear all your damage. So it makes it a lot harder take that 10 damage, but what I've come to find is that the ever-present threat of taking 10 damage being always around creates a sense of urgency to not take damage. Okay, and then you put the topmost card of your recovery or your stamina pile, which is what card go into your gladiator, and you put it into your recovery pile. Then you put cards with a life cost from your exhaust pile equal to your recovery stat into your recovery pile. Then you shuffle together your recovery pile and it makes your new deck. A couple of rulings around recovering that you have to remember. You can only recover cards you have the skills for. So the cards you have the color, the class, or the principles for. Some cards might have double principles. So it'll be a 2 command card. So you need 2 command sprites to be able to access that, to recover that card. Then you can only recover, you must recover whenever your deck runs out. So if you're playing the game, you're drawing cards and your deck runs out. Even if you have more cards in your recovery pile from paying costs or other effects, you have to still take a recover and lose the stamina, shuffle, get rid of your damage, and put recover cards from your exhaust. And then even the cards from your recovery pile are added to your new recovered cards, shuffled together, and put into a new deck. You may also choose to recover at the start of the turn. So if you're getting very close to dying, you have 9 damage, 8 damage, and you know that your opponent can literally kill you with one more attack, you can choose to lose a stamina as usual and recover the normal way. And then if you, for whatever reason, take 10 damage, you can't say, I'm recovering right now. Obviously, once you take that 10 damage, you're losing the game. And if you go to recover because you forced to because you ran out of cards in your deck and you have no more stamina, you lose the game. And those are the 2 ways you lose the game. That's how losing the game works. Sprites in their relationship to gladiators have not changed. Sprites have taken the least updates. And here's the final update for the video. The combat arsenal cards, as you can see, have lost their boost values in their traditional sense. What they now have is this boost grid. I talked about in the last video that I was thinking about implementing it, and now I decided to do just that. So every time you play an action card, an arsenal card as an attack or defense, obviously you have to play it to a certain shield on your opponent's side or shield on your side. And depending on which one you choose, it gains actually a different stat boost value. So, for example, if I played this card on my opponent's leftmost shield, or rightmost shield, from my point of view, not from their point of view, then he gains a attack boost value of 2. If I were to defend for my same zone, I would gain a boost value of plus of only 1. But if my opponent's attacking me in the middle zone, and I choose to defend there, I don't get a boost value of anything. So what this means is that some cards obviously are better for certain things. It gives you it gives you more choices and strategy to think about when you're choosing where to play each of your arsenal, your arsenal cards for attacking. Because certain cards will be better attacking at certain places, but you might have 2 cards in your hand that are both good at attacking at a certain shield zone. And so you have to decide which one of these 2 am I going to attack this shield zone and which one of them am I not going to do that. Or if you have a lot of knowledge of the game and you know what cards your opponent has that are good for certain shield zones in terms of defense, you cannot attack those shield zones, attack other shield zones, knowing that your opponent's going to be at a negative situation if you attack that shield zone because maybe their best defense card only can block middle, or there's only good at defending middle and is really bad at defending left. So then you attack left knowing that. And sometimes it could pan out and sometimes it doesn't really matter. But the point is it gives you just a small amount of decision making on that sense that it makes it just that little bit makes it really important where you're playing your shield cards. And that was the goal of adding this new mechanic. And that's really it for the video. I know I probably talked for probably 20 minutes at this point, but ultimately the differences aren't huge, but I figured I had to talk about them in case people are just confused about them if I just did a playtest video and started playing the game. Obviously the next video is probably going to be a playtest. Might be some art in there if I decide to get up and start working for once, but it might also just be playtesting. So yeah, those are the points. Those are the main purpose of these changes I made is for twofold. First off, I wanted to change how deck building worked. I wanted to be a bit unique, but at the same time be a bit open. I didn't want to just say play this one color or play this one class. But there is an aspect to that. You can, and it's very encouraged to just play mono green if you're playing green. But you can just throw any colors you want in there, and sometimes it doesn't have a huge negative impact on gameplay. You're playing main majority green, you have some reds or some blues or need some yellows, you can have all the colors in there. And it really doesn't have to affect you that poorly. So you can throw all the best cards in one deck. But there is limits to it. Obviously, a deck better built cohesively will be able to recover more, recover whatever they want, recover whenever. No, okay, every deck can recover whenever they want, but you get the point. And that was the main purpose of that. The second purpose is to just give some more meaning to shield zones and cards. Before, every shield zone had no difference. No matter where I attack, it didn't really make a difference. With this, between the combat chart, I call it, on the arsenal cards, where they get different boost values depending on where you're attacking or defending, between active cards that you may want to target a certain shield so you can get rid of certain active cards, or shield trap cards that may deter you from playing into certain shields. Because of the fact that there might be a trap there. And all these things will just add more decision making when it comes to where I'm attacking or where I'm going to defend. And that little bit just adds enough to make it a lot more interesting, in my opinion. And then, of course, adding damage cards and having that looming threat just added another layer that felt was missing. Before, you're playing the game, but you don't have a sense of who's winning until the game is pretty much over, and one person has obviously no stamina left, 5 cards left in the deck, and the other person has 1 stamina left, 10 cards left in the deck. Yeah, well, the winner is pretty much obvious. Although, with the new damage, that's not the case. I can have 5 cards left in death, no more stamina, and still have a good chance of winning, because if I deal damage to like all your shield cards, and they all are like 3s, you take 9 damage, and you had like 2 damage on you already, boom, you're going, you're out of here, and I win the game. So that addition to combat between the shields having meaning, between damage existing and having that threat. And then, of course, between deck building, it opens up the game and it makes it more, it gives you more decisions while restricting your decisions enough to make it interesting. And that's what I was really hoping for. And I hope this is like the last change I have to make to the rule set because I'm actually pretty much enjoying this. I was enjoying the original rules for this latest version of the game, and this fixes almost all my problems with them. We'll see, obviously, as I playtest more, if more problems arise that I can't fix because of the way the game is designed, but I'm pretty excited and pretty confident in saying we're reaching a point in the game's design in which we can say that it's done for the most part. That being said, that's all there is for today's video. I said that already, I think, and then I started rambling some more. I'm going to let you guys go. Hopefully, I'll see you guys for the next video. Hopefully, you guys are still excited and following along with this series. I know that there's a lot of, like, bad communication on my part to show what's been changing and why I'm changing things, or I'll be gone and then the whole game will be different. But we're getting to a point where we can literally see some progressive moving forward motion within the card game that I haven't been able to have since I first designed it. And I'm really excited for that, and I hope you guys are as well. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the Roost.